3000.
All right, what is doing? My name's Maloney. This is the 3000 podcast. I'm joined today by Aaron Gocsy. Gocsy,
Yep.
thanks for coming, man.
Hey, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. It was, we already aborted one. This is second time lucky. Yeah.
Second time.
Yeah.
You had an audition, man, and you've got to in this game, you've got to take those opportunities when they come.
Yeah. I'm not sure if I should say. I'll just go and say what it was. It was. Do you remember the movie Getting Square?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a sequel for that.
Sick.
But I still haven't heard anything, so fingers crossed.
That's the nature of the game. I think when you're in this business, man, you never really know, do you?
Yeah. Well, the whole taking time to. It's kind of like going for jobs, right? Like, when it takes a while to hear back, like part of you can think like, oh, I missed out. But then sometimes it's like they tell the worst people straight away you're out, like sort of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're always just waiting on that next phone call. I
Yeah.
guess it's kind of stressful.
It is, yeah. That's the game.
That's the game. All right, man. So this is going to be a bit of a different episode. I've got the Queensland beer here because this is going to be a Melbourne-centric podcast, but from the eyes of somebody who grew up in Brizzy. So tell us where you grew up, man.
Yeah, so I'm a Brisbane boy, born there. Our very first house was in a suburb called McGregor. I don't have many memories of that because we moved from there when I was I think 5 or something like that. And we moved to another suburb, a few suburbs away, called Sunnybank Hills. This probably all means nothing to people who don't know about Brisbane, but they're just south side suburbs, mundane, sort of suburbia. Although Sunnybank, the thing it's famous for in Brisbane is for being a Asian community suburb. So there's a lot of Asian people there. And
Good food.
yeah, well, that's what I found out. I didn't even realize, but apparently people come from all over Brisbane. People come from all over Brisbane to go there to eat. So yeah, and to come and see me. That's so that's just middle class suburban life. I like to think it influenced me with my humor. I love that sort of obviously like something like The Castle is a huge influence. That suburban Aussie. I love that stuff. Yeah.
Being yourself.
Yeah. That's what I'm a big on is, I sort of joke about like Red Rooster and stuff like that, but I do push back against people who want to be like sort of very, I don't know, I don't want to use the wrong word. I was going to say like everyone's worried about trying to be worldly or like, and a bit of like self-hating of Aussie stuff, But I'm not like full national patriotism and stuff. Just the suburban Aussie shit I think is cool, Yeah.
That is like, I think everyone watches The Castle in the way that when that came out, we all laughed at it because it was Aussie boganism, but it was also so like we could all relate to something within that fucking movie or multiple things within the movie.
Oh, absolutely. And I think there's a good lesson that like one of the things where I sort of can make fun of my mum where like everything she makes has got mince, and I love her where the guy's like, what's for dinner, love? She's like rissoles, but he's stoked. He's like, oh yeah, like there's something nice in the simpleness, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and I think we can all look at that and kind of relate. So you're in Brizzy, you've got a normal kind of suburban sort of upbringing. Are you trying to make people laugh, or are you making kids laugh at school, that sort of thing?
Yeah. I was and key word is I'm trying. Like I was the sort of class clown. I think a lot of people hated it. But that was so in later years. What made me feel great with the comedy doing well was like after all these years of being a bit of an odd, weird dude and trying to make people laugh and people hating it was nice to like, oh, there's people out there who want this,
Validation.
Yeah, that's right. Where for so long it was just like, oh, shut up, man. Give it a rest.
Yeah.
Like, but yeah, and it did make me doubt. Like, God, I got nothing to offer because like what I thought is funny and that people would like, people didn't like.
And I guess we don't want to jump too far ahead, but the beauty of the internet is that you might have this audience that isn't in your backyard, but they're out there somewhere.
Yeah, that's right. I was a strong believer in that of when things were very tough and for many years, there was a lot of playing gigs, stand-up gigs to like not many people, 5, 4, very small crowds, let's put it that way. And I just kept saying to myself is like, there's got to be people out there who are into what you like. And that was the beauty of putting it out there. And people getting into it, which is awesome. Yeah.
So you're living in Brisbane, but you're also a self-confessed sports nuffie. So when you did come to Melbourne, there must have been, like, it's obviously the sports mecca. Was that exciting to come here and visit and see the MCG and shit like that?
Oh, absolutely. So my dad is originally from Melbourne, but funnily enough, he's not a sports person. I don't know where I got it from. We're very different, me and my dad. He's very different to me, but he's originally from Melbourne, and we were always coming family holidays once a year. And so I knew about Melbourne culture and AFL and all that. So from a young age, it was, coming from Brisbane down to Melbourne, it was exciting, seeing the big stadiums and the fandom. And I love all the rivalries, Yeah.
So you weren't into the rugby league that much. You must have been an outsider like in the AFL, man.
No, actually, I was a rugby league boy growing up, and I shifted to footy, because a little bit of Melbourne's cooler sort of thing. But I've actually come back to rugby league, but because I don't know, I was gonna say not everyone does it, but a lot of people do those kind of the teen years as you start like sort of self-hating the place you're from. And,
Yeah, I could understand how that would happen. And you look at Melbourne, especially if you want to do comedy or entertainment or whatever you want to call it, that's sort of probably the place where you're heading.
Yeah, that was a big part of it, was like, Melbourne, people want to go out and they want to be entertained. And like over time, I've realized some of those views, they're not what you think. Like, I think I'm a big believer in like people are people everywhere sort of thing. But, there is a bit of that. Like, they're very supportive down here of, arts and entertainment and stuff. But
there's also more, like you say, more people wanting to go out, but there's also more stuff to do, which means your audience is diluted a little bit as well because there's always something fucking on.
Yeah, that's right. That's the other part of it. It is harder to stand out, yeah.
So you start doing your stand-up comedy stuff in Brizzy, I think, and then this is the early days. You're trying to find your feet. Who are you looking up to? Is there a good stand-up comedy scene in Brizzy?
Well, there is now, but for a long time there wasn't. Like a lot of people who get into things, I started as a huge fan. I gradually started like not getting into it as much anymore. Like, you just stop kind of looking up things, and so like a lot of Aussies, I love Carl Barron. He was a big influence because that's how I started that like sort of wordplay, one-liners, and gradually moved away from that. Mitch Hedberg, have you heard of him? He was one of my favorite. Yeah, he's unfortunately, I just got into him in the early 2000s, and then he passed away not long after that. I'd just gotten into him, but American comedian, he's great. But the thing about influencers and stuff too, you find yourself stop watching and finding out things because you don't want it rubbing off on you so much. And in the early days, I was almost like a copy, I wore my influences heavily. I'd be like saying things they say and words, and then you're just like, I got to stop this. I got to find my own act and voice,
I think, there is something that I think with a lot of creative people, they remove themselves. They don't pay attention to other things because they don't want to be influenced by them, because they just think, I don't want to be accidentally having that, fall into my fucking,
Yeah. So in Brizzy, when, like I said, it's a lot bigger and better now, the scene, but when I started, there was not many gigs at all. And the way it goes in comedy, you get, so you start in open mics and they give you 5-minute spots. That's pretty much it changes a bit. Like, some gigs give you a bit more, a bit less, but generally 5 minutes. But because there wasn't many gigs, I was sort of like, maybe I was like a spot here and there, maybe one a month, sometimes 2 a month. So I wasn't kind of getting a lot of practice. And so then like me and another mate, we started to put on our own things. This was like quite a few years into it. Also, I was a part of the like punk scene up there, and when I say part of, I mean like as a punter. I've tried a few instruments and stuff, but I suck. And even when I say suck, that's a part of punk, is not being great technically, but even suck so much I couldn't play punk. But
what about being a front man and just fucking, just yelling and screaming?
Yeah, exactly. Well, what I was going to say is I would do my comedy in between bands. I'd like,
That's a tough crowd, man.
Yeah, and a band would finish and everyone would be like go outside to either like smoke or whatever, get a bit of air or drink or whatever, and I'd be like, try and grab them before they go, and be like, all right, guys, I'm gonna do a quick set of comedy.
Yeah.
And it was a lot of people just like, what? Like, why do you, but there'd be like 3 or 4 hang around, give it a go, and like, so that toughened me up a lot. And it was like, if you talk to comedy purists, they'll say, like, the room should really be set up well for comedy, like seating wise and sound. And so this had none of that, just people standing in. So it was tough, but it toughened me up. But yeah, like you said, there's always that, option of screaming and yelling and but I've gotten to do a lot of things with bands over the years, which is a nice kind of replacement of like I couldn't do it musically, but to be a part of the industry and scene or whatever.
Well, I've got something in my notes that we'll get to eventually, but you do have some support from some musical industry type people, which must be nice to know.
Oh yeah, like I was a huge music fan, and then it was not something I seeked out really, but then I just find a lot of musos really get what I'm trying to do.
They know the struggle too.
And that sounds pretty lame, but when you talk, or not lame, but pretentious, like, oh, they really get what I'm trying. But yeah, they do, and also, so yeah, I've like performed live shows, done some tours of bands, some music videos, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Growing up watching Rage and stuff.
Yeah. The best.
Great to be a part of music videos, yeah.
Man, I reckon you'd be cool to do the guest host of Rage, man.
Oh, I'd love to do that.
That'd be like a pinnacle fucking thing to do, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Well, so like growing up pre-internet, that's showing my age a bit, but when the American bands and that would come over and they'd show clips that like we'd never seen, that was such a great way of finding out about new music and stuff.
Totally, yeah. As a kid, I liked my punk music a bit as well, but I also loved my hip hop. And if you got an international who was doing stuff, we were seeing clips that you would never see pre-internet.
Yeah,
awesome.
Totally, because we only get served basically the hits or the bigger stuff, and you get to find out what's bubbling under the surface underground and that,
Which is totally cool. All right, so while you're doing your comedy, and look, let's be honest, it's very, very hard to make a fucking living out of comedy, especially when you're trying to find your feet. So what kind of other jobs are you doing to make ends meet at that time, man?
Oh, man, I've done a bit of it. Like, anything you name it, I've tried, as long as it doesn't take a qualification, because I've never... Like, I tried an apprenticeship, carpentry. I lasted about a year, and then I tried a few... All these... Because there's that very blokey thing of, like, everyone's doing it, so, like, you start... I'm like, I'll do that, and then it just didn't suit me at all. But then, a lot of labour hire, where you go out to a building site and fill up a skip and stuff. You just find yourself and again, this is another showing my age thing. It used to be get the newspaper, now it's all internet. But just look for jobs and whatever I can do. Taxi driver at one point, that was a weird job, and that was that shook everything up in my life because I was night shift. So then I was like coming home, sleeping in the day. So it really shakes things up.
Was that in Brizzy?
Yeah, that was Brizzy, yeah. Also, what else? Oh, asbestos demolition. That was pretty crazy, wearing the big masks and full body suits and stuff.
That's got to be decent coin, though.
Nah, it's like, because you're just shit kicker labourer, So, and there's
no danger money?
No. Oh, it might have been a couple of bucks or something, but it wasn't worth it in the end, too, because working with some unsavoury people. I mean, in terms of, like, I'm not prejudiced or anything. I just mean in terms of, like, threatening you and shit, like, Yeah. You don't need that shit. You're just going to work to
fund your next gig,
Yeah. And I was like, I don't need this shit. Yeah. That's when I say unsavory, I meant in behaviour, not. Yeah. Anyway, I don't care what you do, just don't bloody threaten me.
Totally, man. So then, eventually, I guess you want to break out of Brizzy and you want to come to Melbourne, or where did your pursuits take you after your early days in the Brizzy circuit?
Yeah, well, it was always that dream of the big smoke, and then a lot of people with the smallest cities and towns, you've got that choice of, will it be Sydney, will it be Melbourne, because they're both, big cities, and I chose Melbourne because, family here. I knew quite a few friends here, and I seemed to just do a little bit better here in Melbourne. So, came down to give it a shot, and Yeah, things were going great. This was like a few years ago, and things were taking off a bit for me. And one of the things like always had a love of, because I started in stand-up, which is a common thing because of the entry level so easy, right? It's so low that these open mics, you just say, I want to perform and you're in. Whereas the entry point, for example, I love acting, but that's a harder entry point because auditions, you've also got to like beat people for role. They've got to want you for that role, that sort of thing, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, stand-up's just the lower entry point. So that's what, I came down to Melbourne, and I'd always had that dream of like wanting to act in stuff and create things, and it was great because some people down here, like working with people who were producing skits for me and things. Yeah, I had this group I was working with, which was great. Yeah, and that was like not long after I arrived, so it was kind of like for me, it was like this is a great decision to come, and things are kicking off, and pretty. Not long after arriving, I got to be in a movie called The Merger. That was awesome, and
that's a big box to tick in general.
Yeah, well, that was awesome, and it happened pretty quick. That it made me not that I didn't take it for granted, but it just made me probably think that it's less rare than it is, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Like it was, not take it for granted, but because I found out after that there's 4 or 5 years where there's no movies. It's not a normal thing.
That's not a normal thing.
And I was lucky, right? Like most of the roles, I'm pretty sure people audition for. They either audition or they were like some really great actors from like theatrical background.
Yeah.
So I was lucky in terms of they just said, we want you on this. I guess with what I'm doing, I don't like to sort of dissect what I do, but there's not a lot of people doing that kind of style. So that's good when someone thinks, if I want that. Like in the movie, I played the chef, and he's a bit slow. He's not all there playing a bit of footy. So there's not many that suit that, right? Yeah.
So let's talk about the internet and then social media. So you managed to do social media pretty well. A lot of people struggle with it, but I think the first time that you come onto my radar was with the classic stitch up thing. Is that like something that happened? Obviously, you didn't expect it to go that big, but were you trying to make things happen on socials before that?
Yeah, well, so like I said, I've been doing the stand-up in Brizzy for a long time, and I was that sort of person who was whinging. I'm not proud of it, but I was like, oh, why aren't things happening for me? And I was expecting people to help me and stuff, and it got to that point of where I had to be like, where they say like put up or shut up, meaning like make it happen, stop whinging, that sort of thing. And I'm just like, because I'm like seeing, because there is some people where management will pick them up, push them, but that wasn't going to happen for me. I'm not that style of act. So I figured I got to make the effort, put some things out there, and the public will, like, it's like democracy, right? The public will decide if they like it. And, that's obviously things, you got to start somewhere. And at first things were quite slow. Like I was finding maybe each week, like 1 or 2 people joining the page. And there's it was very like culty, nichey. And I didn't know really what I was doing, but
you were doing it.
Yeah, and I had this thought in my mind that was like interaction, right? Like what these pages like Facebook, Instagram, whatever, what is good about it? Like there's good and bad, right? And like what is good about it? And I thought something that's good can also be bad, but it's the interaction, because as you know, there's like trolling and stuff. But a lot of people like to be a part of the process, right?
Yep.
So I thought if I put it out there to people to try and be involved, that could get things going. So one of the very first things I did, because is it Reddit? I think has Ask Me Anything.
AMA.
Yeah, that's right. So I'm going to put a spin on this, and I'm going to do Feed Me Anything, and it would be. What it was, I got people to say, you tell me what to eat and I'll go and eat it. So that's when things started not moving super quick, but I found people were telling mates, because they were like, you can tell this guy to eat something. And I did have to cut off because like everyone, like people were trying to be too funny. They're like, 27 spiders. And like, that's what I was saying with the mundane suburban stuff. I wanted it to be someone going, have a seafood pack, have a Tropicana pack. and that was what made it interesting and funny, I thought. And but there was always people trying to be funny or cool and say eat this, and I just said nah. But yeah, so that was one of the first things. So out of that, so I do think if I hadn't have done that, you need to start somewhere, right? I wouldn't have had the people to have seen the classic Stitch Up and that.
Yeah.
But even at that point, it was still, I think, a few hundred or a few thousand, or whatever, like not a huge amount.
So that took a while to build momentum.
But that day I put up that video and it's so powerful, the internet, because it just, like, and it changes over time, right? Like I know there's less people on Facebook now, but that was like, that day everyone's just like tagging people, going, check out this. And I went to work, like no joke, I put it up in the morning, went to work, the place where the thing that happened.
So it actually happened?
Yeah. And I put it up in the morning and I was all like, even got a bit late to work because I'm just like uploading it. And I went to work and then, first few hours, nothing. And it's just, then I'm like, went to smoke or lunch or whatever. And I'm like, this thing's blowing up in a few hours, right? And it was like, by the end of the day, people at the job site had seen it. And they don't even know I do comedy or anything. They're like, is this you? And they're like, yeah, it's powerful, man. But depending on at whatever point in time, what everyone's on, right? Like, so now, like I said, less people on Facebook. I guess it's TikTok now, right?
TikTok, yeah.
Which I've got to try and get into. I've been a bit lazy, but it's at one point in time, everyone can be on one thing, and it can be very.
Yeah, because I honestly thought that you just wrote that and it was just a little made up sketch, but it actually happened.
Yeah, so it happened on the Friday, and then I had like the weekend to sort of stew over it, and a lot of those things I would write like a script on a piece of paper, but not thinking I've got to say it word for word, because like sometimes as a performer, that's where you're stressed too much over.
Yeah.
Anyway, I wrote that out, and then the group. Do you know the group Arnie Donna? Like they're doing really super successful. Anyway, they were in Brisbane doing a show at a big theatre, and I got along really well with them, and we were hanging out backstage at their show, and it's a bit of a no-no in comedy. You don't really do this where they call them like bits, right? You don't try bits on because it's just like we're hanging out, man. Don't leave business to business, whatever. But anyway, I decided to just say this thing, and they were like, "That's funny, man. You should put it out." And then so anyway, next morning before work, got up a bit earlier, uploaded it, and the rest is history. But it was funny because it was something that happened, and actually, speaking of Arnie Donna too, because they were a big influence for me to want to put things online, because it sounds stupid, but before that, the internet had this stigma of it was like epic pranks or like I don't know if it's the right word, but I use the word obnoxious. Like a lot of stuff are like surprising people in the street with pranks, and it's like thinking back, it's stupid because it's like the internet. So one group can't own it, right? But it was up until that point, internet comedy was like pranks and stuff, and then those guys are like, oh, you can be like smart and interesting and not obnoxious. And well, some people would say some of the stuff they do is obnoxious.
I think I don't know what year it was, but I think that Instagram wasn't really much about videos then. So you sort of had to put it on YouTube, didn't you? Where now you would just sort of do Instagram or TikTok if you had a short video.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I never really knew what I was doing in terms of formats, and I just chucked it up on Facebook, and I don't think a lot of people would. I remember, like, and I hated it, but people would say the Facebook guy. They call me like the Facebook guy, and like, but I'm just like, it's just a format. I'm just using. I'm just like, because I know the stigma of Facebook's like aunties and uncles having rants and stuff.
It is now, but it was different when's this, like early 20-teens, like 2013 or 14, something like that?
Yeah, I just liked it because you can, put it was really good for me for touring too, to like put up event pages and
that sort of
I
thing.
think it was for a lot of, like I was saying, for a few years it can be one thing until it dies off, as everyone knows, like MySpace years. And,
exactly.
Yeah.
So it does blow up. Your YouTube channels getting a lot of hits, I'm guessing, and then you sort of think, okay, this is now gone viral. You
Yeah.
become a meme.
Yeah.
Then what do you think? Fuck. So how do I capitalize on this? Or
Yeah.
what's the next step?
Yeah, well, so like I said, I'd been at stand-up for a long time, and it was like sick. Like now people are interested, but I'm like, all right, yeah, now I got to put on shows and make some merch. I was like selling shirts. It was like awesome, but it was like, wow, like it was half and half. It was a little bit of like pinch myself, like, oh, this is, but also it's like, well, yeah, it's happening because I've put in the hard yards. And some of the online dudes are the other way around, where like they're like, all right, now I've got to create a live show. Whereas I came from the other way, where I'd been doing the hard yards and had the live shows.
So you were ready to go.
Yeah, pretty much. Like, because of, like I said, coming through for many years, I was doing a lot of those 5-minute spots. I didn't have heaps of material, but I squeezed out a 1 hour live shows that I could sell some tickets. So that was great, yeah.
Was there backlash from the comedian community that were like, fuck, man, this guy's just done one video and all of a sudden he's selling out these shows? Like, this is bullshit, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, it was a bit weird, like I said, because a lot of people knew I'd been at it for a long time, and they just saw me as this battler who was like, you know, I just bit weird, bit odd, and you know, I'd started that, you know, creating a persona of the sort of, you know, it's a bit lame to talk about, but like the mullet and bit of a blue collar battler.
But I feel that is actually you just dialed up a little bit.
Yeah, that's right. Well, like it actually just it started as a joke where I was like, oh, because you know. It was, these days, it's almost a fashion.
Every kid's got a mullet.
And like you see on the news, there's like private schools and anyway. But this was like I've had it for a long time, mullet, and then it was started like a joke, right? Because it was like used to be a stigma around it, right? There's like a bit lower socioeconomic or whatever.
Yep.
And then I was kind of coming from the punk background as well. I wanted to kind of like, it's a bit cheesy to talk about, but I was like. I want to like challenge perspectives or whatever, where I'm like, they say you look like this, that means you're this. I want to, you know, it'll be like, nah, like challenge it. Anyway, started like that. But then I just kept it where I'm like, it's part of my persona. And then, so when things kicked off, I'm not really answering your question, sorry, but
doesn't matter.
Nah, well, I don't think there was bad backlash, but like, yeah, I did get a lot of, yeah. Well, the funny thing is, so a few of the like gigs and some of the like cool, because like, you know, in any scene, there's like, you know, the gigs are that's a bit cooler, right? A bit of a cooler one, and then there was so a few of the cooler gigs would be like, when I was on, they'd be like, from the internet, and I took it, you know, when like sometimes you don't know the content, I took it to be a little bit backhanded, but it's like. Because this was before people were putting a lot of stuff online. Yeah. Because like I noticed a shift like 2 or 3 years ago where everyone's putting everything now. Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess it depends on how you perceive it. Yeah. But you were thinking if you felt it was derogatory because you'd been putting in the hard yards. It wasn't just this one hit wonder. Yeah. You've been fucking there grinding it out already.
Yeah. Like I've heard a lot of different people talk about this where you don't like talking about yourself, right? It's a bit lame, but you know, a lot of people, even people who are like early adopters of a sound, they don't like to say, "Oh, we're trailblazers" or whatever. You know, music. I don't like to talk about myself, but I got a mate, and he was telling me like, "Man, you were one of the early adopters of like drinking something and reviewing it or eating, you know." Yeah. And now it's like every man his dog is
doing it. Yeah.
So I'm not trying to say like, "Oh, I was the one," but in terms of like. Yeah, like I said, my thinking was just like, I can sit around, sook and whinge, or I can put stuff out there. And I was kind of proud of myself too, that it was like I wasn't following any format or I just sort of, I was just like, and I'm really bad with tech, man, and I didn't know what I was doing.
No, but I think that leans into it.
Yeah.
Like in that video, you've got too much headroom, which I'm just learning about. Yeah. You've got the high vis on.
Oh, man, like I kind of cringe because like I didn't even know how to edit, right? I'm pretty sure you can see me clicking off and like, it's pretty much anything that a tech school would say not to do, I did. But some people like the charm of that, you know? Like being a music fan, I know there's musicians who are like, you know, when people, there was that thing with Bob Dylan, right, where they were like, don't go electric or what, you know, like people always long for the shitty lo-fi
Like
years.
stuff. Yeah. But you are being authentic though, man, and I think people can't, if they can say whatever they want about the viral nature of it, it was you being yourself and you weren't trying to be someone you're not.
Yeah, that's right, man.
Just got to do your own thing and then eventually it'll happen. So after this original virality happens and then you fucking go on to try and keep, is there pressure for you to keep doing more videos, to keep being a funny bastard? Do people say, when's the next Stitch Up video?
Yeah.
Like, do you feel a bit of pressure from that, from the early days?
Yeah, definitely. There was people saying like, do it again, do another one, and like looking back, I probably should have, but I had this sort of this thing in me where I don't know the right word to use. I'll say like sort of self sabotage, you know, where it's like whatever the thing is, it's gonna make you big or huge or whatever. I like rally against that.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, like I said, I was doing in the early days, like reviewing food and drink, and then I just stopped. Yeah, like hindsight's easy, you know, where it's like I wanted to be like known as, didn't want to be pigeonholed and wanted to be known as like having a range and
totally.
Yeah.
And you don't want to be one of those people that, and you can see it online now where people try and recreate their last viral attempt, and you're like, okay, it's like how many times can you do that same thing? So I think it's cool that you don't over fucking do it.
Yeah, but yeah, like I like when you say that, but there is a place. I guess there's a place for giving fans what they want, but yeah, it's a fine line, man. Like, you know.
And I really liked. Sorry to cut you off, but I really liked after that when you did the Simpsons impersonation. See, I find that even more funny, man.
Yeah, it is. It was a cool era, you know. I felt like I was like putting out. I guess it's that thing of like, it's like when a band bursts out with their first album and you're like, fuck, they got like 5 great singles. But it is that thing of like, because it's your first thing and the energy, what do you call it, creative juices are just flowing. And I don't know what it is, if you're overthinking things then, or it's just you had 5 ideas and they're all done. Because a lot of those things would come from just hanging around. Like I said, that was me saying Stitch Up to Arnie Donna. And then that Simpsons thing is a lot of like when we were hanging out as comedians, we just say stupid stuff like that. Like we'd be like, hey, what about Skateboard Boy? Like, you know, like, oh, and go, that stupid thing. We'd always just go, I like the dad on The Simpsons and like, you know, being deliberately stupid. And, like, and that's how it made me think of that as like, you know, like what if The Simpsons were Aussie, you know? That was that kind of...
Man, I used to piss myself with that, man. Like that's probably my favorite thing you've ever done.
It's nice to say that. I do like it when, because obviously some things people say they like more than others, but I like when someone like says something different. That's my favorite thing of yours, and I'm like, oh, thanks, man. I don't hear that often.
But
you know?
yeah, no, the Simpsons. It was just really good because it obviously Simpsons went. Like, it was awesome when we were kids.
Yeah.
And then it went down this path where Homer's just a bumbling idiot.
Yeah.
And that became, like, the joke for the next 10 years. So for you to sum it up and do the Aussie sort of, I'm sick of you, woman. I don't know, man. I was just pissed myself.
Like, I don't like to dissect what I do too much, but I also have this thing where I'm, like, with, like, impersonators or whatever. And, like, some of them are, like, brilliant where you're like, oh, that sounds exactly like the thing. But I don't like impersonators because I'm just like, well, you sound like the thing, so what? So that was my thing to like sort of almost rebel against that, where it's like, imagine if I just do it and don't even try and get close.
That's the best bit.
And it's almost like I said, I don't know if self-sabotage is the right word, but I like perplexing people because I was seeing comments where they're like, I don't get it, it sucks.
Well,
like,
they don't get it.
Yeah,
though. I got it.
But that's why I love it. It's almost like, but the danger in that is too that it's nice to play to the people who get it, but then you can lose that mass appeal. But
Man, I'm sure that there's probably people in America that saw the classic Stitch Up. I just say that because I feel that they're big consumers of internet meme stuff.
Yeah.
But would have seen that or would have seen the Simpsons stuff, and they would have gone, these guys are weird in Australia, so they don't even really get it, and they're commenting saying, is this guy for real? They don't even know. We're just playing into the whole thing.
Yeah, well, like I said, for me, doing a lot of shit kicking, labouring jobs, that's where that stuff like Stitch Up comes from, is that you've got 8 or 9 hours on these warehouses and building, and you just got to fill in time. And between like thinking of what you're going to get from the smoko van, and you'd have to do these little pranks and shit. And I think people like I said, I don't like to dissect it too much, but I think if there's a lot of people who haven't been in a blue collar environment that might interest them to know like what goes on and that sort of thing.
And other guys that are in it, they're like, "Oi, Gocsy reminds me of Steve-O in the warehouse.
Exactly.
He's just like fucking Steve-O." You know?
I did get that a lot where people were like sending me photos. They're like this is Jono, this is whatever, and like he does stitch ups at work, and there was a lot of that, and. Yeah,
there you go. That might be a gig. That might be a gig coming up.
Yeah, it was I'm glad you said that because it was a crazy time where it was like, it did feel like I put up a few things and they were just like people getting into it. I'm like, oh, this is awesome! Like all those years of playing, like, and it might sound like I'm exaggerating, but like a lot of those gigs is like 3 people because they'd chuck this mic in the corner of a pub. You know the pubs where there's like the races are playing, people are having meals and no one wanted it, you know? Like, the pub would just pay for it to be on.
Yeah. Grinding it out, man. But so then when you move to Melbourne, you've got a bit of momentum. People know who you are. So now I'm guessing you're getting some people asking you to do cameos, to be yourself. You're not really auditioning. They're like, come and just be Gocsy.
Yeah. That was... again, a really crazy period of time. Like I said, I started working with people making skits down here, which is awesome. Bands would get me to be in things, and like, I was doing, like, I was doing a trivia night at the Toad Hotel. That was awesome because I had that like legendary rock pub sort of thing, and but it was like, and then even doing stuff with the Saints footy team. That was cool.
Yeah,
because like that. Because I was a fan, but I never went out of my way to, like, say I'm a big fan or anything. But I was, like, a few different skits. I was wearing the jumper and stuff. And then, but they were like, yeah, come down, meet the players. Like, that was cool. So, like, it did feel like things were, like, taking off. It was a crazy period. But like I said, I do feel like I'd earned it as well.
Yeah. Do you remember your first sort of like TV gig or first gig where people said, come and do this and just be yourself. You don't have to fucking audition. You don't have to do anything. We've actually written this part for you.
Yes, probably, like I said, working with those groups. So I work with this group, Hot Dad Productions. They made like that Ocean Girl one. Things like that.
The Gocsy's classics.
Yeah. So Ocean Girl was the first thing we did. And they just put it up. We just put it on my page and they like paid for it and everything, and it did really well. And that's when more things started coming with offers. Gocsy's Classics was on Comedy Central Australia, which ended up fizzling out, unfortunately. But that's like, the world's biggest comedy channel tried an Australian sub-channel or whatever. And I got asked to do a series on it. Like, it was just online or whatever, but I was stoked. I was like, I got to do, it was all like 90s nostalgia, which is what I'm all about.
Yep.
Blue Hillers and Heartbreak High and Round the Twist. We got to go to the actual lighthouse.
Yeah, that's it.
There's a bit of Victorian history.
Yeah, it's in Anglesea, is it?
Yeah, pretty sure.
Close to there.
Or something Inlet? No.
Oh, Aries Inlet.
Yeah, I knew it was an A, yeah. But, I don't know if I should say this, but I'm sure you can look it up or whatever, but the inside shots on the show it's a bit of a trickery. It's somewhere else.
Yeah.
But I was in the one they used for the outside shots. Yeah.
And that must be awesome for someone I'm about your age. I guess that, we've got that nostalgia of those old TV shows, man, to actually get your head in there and sort of like fulfill a bit of a childhood dream.
Yeah. Oh man, totally. Like telly was huge for us, like sort of raised us.
Well, but before the internet, that's where you just got all your information from, and that's it. You could watch those shows, and fucking that was all we had to get our little slice of pop culture.
And because there was like everything spread with the internet, right? But you knew that there's a high chance that everyone at school's watching that. Either that there's like because there's say 3 or 4 channels.
Yeah.
Let's say 3. Yeah, 4, whatever. No one watches SBS, but but and then. On job sites, they call it water cooler, don't they? The water cooler discussion. That would be like Monday morning. There's no water cooler at school. I guess the bubbler talk, yeah. But I remember things like talking about comedy, right? This was in high school, but coming the next day after like Carl Barron had been on telly and people quoting his jokes and stuff. And that's why the Melbourne Comedy Fest Gala was huge.
Yep.
Because even if you're not like a comedy nerd or purist, that was the one time of year everyone tuned in. And it's all changed now, but it's all different. But
and you could watch that and see who you might want to. Well, from a Melbourne perspective, see who you might want to get tickets to. Oh, that guy was actually funny there.
Yeah,
let's get tickets to that show.
Well, I do think the people who were televised in that era of everyone watching, they're like some of those ones who have been fortunate enough to have a big career, like your Hugheses and your
and international people as well, like that would come over for that. Arch Barker would always be here. You'd get
some people say they're bigger here than their home country because of it's that condensed thing of there's 3 channels, everyone in Australia is watching
it pre-internet.
Yeah.
Man, you obviously, when you find a bit of success, you've got to start to figure out how to monetize it. You've got some of the best merch with Chalky. You've got Chalky Milk fucking stubby holders.
Yeah.
How did that idea come about, man?
Oh, I have to say a big thanks. My mate Mark has been awesome. He's like I knew him from he was in a lot of like punk bands and stuff, and he's lined it up for me over the years. Like the very first thing, he had a patch that said Classic Stitch up there and sew it on. The next was air fresheners for cars, and then Chucky milk holders. But yeah, I'd love to say that like my mind was creative enough to think of these, but it wasn't. My mind's boring. It's just like shirts, stickers. And I've also talking about shirts. I've been very thankful in this community of artists, performers, whatever you want to call it, to know a lot of artists who've created designs for me and had friends who like painted pictures of me that I've had on shirts, and some other guys who've done the, you like the brand rip-offs. So I got like a Pepsi and one of my
Twisties
favorites.
one? Did you have a Twisties one?
No, Hungry Jack's.
Hungry Jack's,
that's very popular. One of my favorites is instead of Fox Racing, it's Gox, Gocs. And you know how Fox has the Fox head? They've got my head. Yeah, it's just brilliant.
But you got to think outside the square when it comes to merch, because like even with this show, I haven't fucking monetized it at all. But I think about, all right, I've got to do something.
Yeah.
So many people are doing.
You know, it'd be a good one.
What's that?
Melways. Because if you're Melbourne, like you could have like your logo, but in the Melways.
Yeah. Well, see, we've got the old Melways.
That's another thing showing my age a bit. No, because this is something a lot of people wouldn't know about me, because I know I present myself as a very cool dude, but I'm a huge geography nerd.
Yeah.
So I remember my parents would say, like, as a kid, he was always looking at maps and atlases. But I don't know. That's what, when you're a kid, it's before you're kind of self-aware of, like, what are people looking at me? So you just, whatever you do, that's just what you naturally love, right? Yeah. And I would I don't know what it was. Like atlases, I just love looking at like cities and flags. And ironically, I've never been out of Australia, so I'd love to. And then Melways too, I love looking at,
Especially when you'd come in from another city, you'd see how it works. And
I love the and being in a sports, like the different fields and
that sort of thing. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah. When we're talking about the nostalgia before, it made me think of something like, so with sketch or skit comedy, there was a period, and I'm sure you remember it pretty fondly, where there was some awesome Australian comedy sketch shows on, and like they seem to. You've tried a couple, I think yourself. They don't. I think is it post internet that they just don't seem to work on TV as much as they used to. They used to smash it. Yeah,
well, it's funny you say that, because I was a huge fan of them at the time. And I've just recently looked them up on YouTube, like the Russell Gilbert Show and Skit House. And actually, that's the movie I said I was in, the merger. Damien Callanan was a big part of Skit House, with the fast bowler and all that.
Aussie fast bowler.
Yeah. But yeah, it was a, like with anything, time and a place, and some things suit certain time. I guess everything's fast moving now. Like people had more, I guess, attention span to sit down. But even then, I say that, but then that's a bit of a cop-out, because people are watching these long movies and series now, aren't they? So, yeah, but I don't know, man. Like, just watching those skit shows, like, from the turn of the century around, like, 99, 2000, they're very weird, too, because, like, watching them, and it's almost... Because also the other thing is, too, like, a lot of, obviously, things need funding, right? Someone needs to green light things, and then, so I know I'm trailing off into other areas.
No,
here,
but it's
then,
cool.
Like, for example, like say for movies, right after The Castle, quite a lot of movies were getting greenlit because people were like, oh, that did well.
Yep.
Just give me more.
The copycat effect.
Yeah, and so there was like The Nugget and like ones like that, and they didn't quite have the same success. But so the same thing with the skit shows. It's what I was saying recently. I was watching them on YouTube, and it's quite interesting to like. Not like, oh, that was a bad skit, but like, oh, that got greenlit, you know? And it's just like, because everything takes time. I've realized with filming, you know? Like, sometimes you can be out for a full day filming and you get a minute of action or something.
Yeah.
So for me to watch these, and they're like, again, I'm not trying to disrespect them or anything. Like, they were good shows, but I'm sure a lot of them were just throwaway skits. Like, there was a half-an-hour show, right? And I'm sure they were like in a writer's room and they said, what if blah, and then they're like, yep, let's do it. And then whereas these days, I guess a lot more things get denied. That might be the difference. But
because it was the political correctness was out the window a bit back in those 90s eras. You probably couldn't get away with stuff.
I had Damien Callan on my pod. He had a funny story about you know, they're running around town doing all these skits, and he said he has this memory of himself, I think it was, dressed as Osama bin Laden for a skit, and I'm like, people like looking in the car and like you probably wouldn't do like that's a big no these days. Is any sort of brown or black face or
you can't do
cultural appropriation. Well, let alone like the terrorism angle
stuff
too,
like that.
Just like,
but you look back at like Fast Forward, man, the comedy company, the stuff that they were doing. There's no way you could get away with any of that shit anymore. Yeah,
that's one thing. You do have to look at things and look at it in the context of the time.
You're right. Yeah.
Yeah. I look at some older comedy and stuff, and not even in a this is crook or bad way, but also just to like. So there's a big thing in the '90s where the whole thing like started off like observation, right? You know, when Seinfeld was like, "What is the deal with?" And you watch some of it, and you're just like. Man, that's just nothing. But it's like it would have at the time seemed mind blowing, right?
But now it's become part of our normal thought process because someone eventually had to point it out, and now we just think,
so you got to view things in the context of that time. The same with like edgelord sort of like you know about Bill Hicks, right?
Yeah.
So he's like late '80s, early '90s. It would have seemed mind blowing at the time, but I think a lot of that stuff, thankfully, in some ways, like it can still stand up, but in other ways, we kind of outgrew it. You know, there's a lot of stuff where, like, I don't want to get into too political or anything, but there would be like, man, what's the point in voting? They're all like, it's just shit versus crap. Or I think South Park did as well. Whereas I think we've moved past that, where it's like, a lot of people now are like, well, you've got to make an effort to try and find the better one or what. Yeah. You know?
If you're not part of a problem, you're part of a solution type scenario.
But that's as deep. I want to get into politics.
Yeah, we don't need to talk about politics. So you did mention your podcast, man. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that? Like the idea. I like the name.
You sure you want to mention a rival?
Yeah, we're not a rival. Answer the phone.
Oh, is that all right?
Yeah, answer the phone. It's all good.
Not very professional.
It's all good, man. You did mention that you've got a podcast, Have a Yarn with Me, which is a play on Barn Me, and I like the artwork as well, man.
Yeah.
That's
cool.
cool.
I was talking before with shirts and stuff too. Yeah, I'm lucky to have a lot of cool artists in that. The artist for that is called Mike Foxall. He's been in a lot of like punk bands. I don't know, Nancy Vandal, have you heard of them? That community is a lot of crossover. They do a lot of stuff for like Friends of Romart and stuff.
Awesome.
But yeah, so for the pod, you know, like a lot of pods have a theme. Mine isn't a very like strict, strong theme, but it's just get a guest on each episode and basically get to know them and their life and journey. It sounds a bit cheesy, but I love going from the early years because you get to know like sort of if where they're from plays a part in who they are as a person. And one thing I really wanted to do, I don't know if I've achieved it, but I had this thought of like, all right, the person you would know them as this. Let's try and get away from that and get to know that like their hobbies and stuff. But I need to work more on that. But I just thought that'd be interesting. Is, you know, like
totally
you get muso in. Well, then don't talk about music. Get away from that.
Totally.
Or get a sports person. So, because I had this thing where I was realizing a lot of people have this kind of, I don't know, I called it like double life or that sounds a bit like they're doing a crime or something. Nothing negative, but you know them as this, but they were this. Yeah. It's funny because there's quite a few comedians who were tennis players, really good tennis players. And it's like, I often thought like, let's get them all together and talk about like how far they went with tennis.
Yeah, for sure.
But so that was just a small example. But it's my second crack at a pod. I did one years ago with another comedian called Ben Searle. That was called I'm All Ears. So it was a similar thing. Yeah, just get a guest on. But I enjoy it, like having some really good chats. And I just have to improve my professionalism a lot. I recently lost a bunch of eps. Yeah.
Jeez, like you mean a bunch?
Yeah, it was like, man, it's brutal. I think it was like 7 or 8. Because I did not. I dropped the person who helps me to upload them. I dropped the memory cards off into his letterbox, and they were never seen again. I don't know what happened. Oh, that makes it sound like it was something on his end. It was. I should have done the. A, I should have backed him up, and B, I should have at least put him in something like a box or. But yeah, you know, in life we live and we learn. But that was brutal, yeah. So not good to do that.
Not good. I think we've all.
Have you had anything like that? Or
I've had, yeah, man. I have, unfortunately, having my own studio, doing everything. I've had a couple of things, but not losing 7 episodes.
Yeah,
I can't say
that
I've done that. But you've had some amazing guests on there, man. And are they generally people that you know in real life, and they're just people that you think are interesting enough to have a chat with?
Yeah. That's kind of the first thing is like, well, they're gettable. I know them. Or when I say no, you know, it's these days with online, you're clicking like on people's things and commenting, and we feel like we know people when we may not have. But yeah, obviously like cross paths with comedians. Obviously, a lot of musos. I don't think I've had any sports people yet, but gonna try because I know like quite a few sports people, and they'd be good. They're just hard to track down because of commitments and training and stuff.
That sort of thing. Yeah, with this... Sorry, go.
I was just going to say, and also, not that I want them to say anything crook or dramatic, but they can be worried about that too, I think, too. With
sports people, yeah.
The
They're not like
can be like
musos or comedians. Yeah. I've actually haven't had any sports people on this show yet, except unless you consider skaters, sports people.
Yeah, that's a sport.
I guess so. But yeah, I really want to talk to some people that no longer have the clubs on their case. Maybe, talk to people that have maybe been mistreated a little bit. You know what I mean? Like just because there's a lot more to sports than what we see. You know what I mean?
Well, one of my favourite I've had is Ryan Fitzgerald, and he spoke about because he got drafted by Sydney Swans, so it was kind of he got the last little bit of Tony Lockett, so that was quite interesting.
Awesome.
And, but yeah, he was a really good guest. But yeah, I enjoyed it a lot. Like it's just really interesting hearing people's journey, and as cheesy as that sounds, but and I get to be a bit different.
Yeah,
what
people get an insight to what you're about as well because they get to see. I remember listening to a few of your episodes, and I'm like, I'm getting to know Gocsy a little bit more too. So it works like that.
I'm just learning as I go too, because like sometimes I worry that I flip things back onto me a bit too much, but then I'm like, you just got to trust that people want to hear that because they wouldn't be listening unless they wanted to.
No, and it doesn't matter who the guest is. They're listening to your shows, so they know you and they like you enough to fucking listen to your show.
Yeah. Well, sometimes I think I repeat a lot of things on a lot of verbs, but then it's like, if it's there, right? Like, someone might mention the suburb that they grew up in, and I'll try and compare it to the one I grew up in, because that's just bouncing off each other. It's like, oh, yours is like that, well, mine,
Were you constantly doing that with Melbourne when you came here? That like, all right, this is kind of like this part of Brizzy, and this is like that part. Yeah,
definitely. Like I like to get when I'm in a city, I like to get a feel of like, all right, where's the CBD? And that's where I found. Okay, so this is for my life and my experience in Melbourne. I wanted to talk about this. It's interesting because like my dad's side. Like I said, we've been coming once a year for all of my life. But their areas like South Side, my grandma and uncle were like Carnegie, Bentley around there. So that was my sort of like my first half of my life was pretty much knowing that area. Then when I moved down for the comedy, like a lot of artists and entertainers, North Side, right? North's is quite big. So I was living in Preston, Reservoir. So I got to know that area. And then this time I'm in the West. So I'm like gradually going 360 on the compass.
Yeah.
Well, you can't really go 360 because the ocean, but it is. And then I find it interesting too, like I said, with cities. You can see I'm getting excited. I'm a big geography nerd. But I find it interesting what if a city is kind of swayed towards a side, if you know what I mean. So if you look at Melbourne, there's not heaps going on in the west side, right?
But it's growing.
Yeah, that's what I mean. And Sydney's a bit like that too, where the north side it's quite big, but it's a small part of, like, if you look at a map, everything's on the south side of the harbour, so pretty much. But then so I find that stuff interesting. But then, so in Melbourne, when you go, talking about those experiences like south, north, and west, the part I kind of least know about is the Big East, right? Like I say, but my partner now, she's living at Ringwood in the Big East, so I've been getting to know out there.
Yeah.
And it's like, it just goes and goes, right? It just keeps going.
There's just another suburb, and it just keeps going, man.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of Melbourne. You can go in every direction, and you're going to find more stuff.
Yeah.
But the
So
West,
I know I made that sound more interesting than it is. I get excited about it.
You do.
I'm a big geography nerd. Yeah.
Have you spotted the big map over there, the Melbourne map?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So you can see, not heaps in the west, but
It's growing slowly.
yeah.
With the podcast, you've got the dude from the chats. I don't know his name, but he did the jingle, though, didn't he? That's pretty sick.
Yeah, and he was unfortunately one of the eps I lost. Yeah.
Is he chill?
But I'm sure I'll get him back.
What's his name? Give me
Eamon. Yeah.
So, and did he wrote that? Like, he just said, "Give me something."
No, well, it's funny. I actually scribbled some lyrics down quickly, like as a guide, and I'm thinking, oh, he'll play around with it, but he just used them straight like that. And also the other part of it too was like, I didn't really explain it properly, but in my mind, you know when you get in your mind an image of what you want, but you don't communicate it properly. But that was in my mind, it was the full band. It was going to be the chats.
Oh, yeah.
But then he gave that back to me.
It's sick, though.
But that's the thing, is almost like, that's rarer, because he doesn't do a lot of acoustics.
No.
He did a song for ScoMo during the fires.
Yeah.
But it was cool. It was like, yeah, this is cool. And
I'm guessing you know him from the Brizzy punk scene.
yeah, well, no, I don't actually. No. They were from the Sunshine Coast.
Oh, okay.
Which I guess, is like Frankston is to Brizzy. It's just out of the city, but also like they're super young too. They are. I'm almost double their age, but I've done a few things with them. Few gigs. Actually, one of the toughest gigs I've ever done. Melbourne Uni, like O Week, and I was on before them. Did about half an hour, no laughs. And then the crowd went off to them.
But Melbourne...
But it's that thing of, I put it down to demographic and age, right? Like, I'm almost double these uni students' age. And
Melbourne Uni as well, because they're all scholars. It's not an easy school to get into, so you'd think that they'd be reasonably...
Yeah, and I'm talking about Red Rooster and suburban shit. They're like, is that vegan? No. I don't try and make class wars around, but I've done. I was a model for their speed dealer Sunnies as well. Like,
yeah,
I've done
sick.
A few things. So yeah, just kept in touch over the years, and yeah, he's a great dude. And
but see, those guys.
I'm spewing. I lost that ep. It was a good chat because we did talk about him doing the the theme.
Oh man, maybe it'll turn up somewhere. I don't know.
I had this it's like what. You got those sayings like, be careful what you wish for, or whatever. But this one is more like, be careful what you say. Because when I would finish an ep, I'd just, like a throwaway line, I'd say to the guest, I'd go, well, that was great. Worst case scenario, we had a nice convo. But you say that, obviously you want it recorded, you want people to hear it. But it's like, worst case scenario, we had a good talk. And then doing that gag, it come back to bite me.
Yeah. It's a bit like the old break a leg when you go out on stage.
Yeah, I know. But... Anyway, man, I just got to... it's one of those things I've got to improve my ways, do things better, and... but yeah, What was the initial question? I'm pretty bad at trailing off, but oh yeah, I guess about the theme song, wasn't it? Yeah. So that was like, I love. It's great having knowing these people who are great at these like artists, and because I was able to get Mike for the artwork, aiming for the theme song, and it's that thing is like, of course you want it to do great, and I've got like a small devoted listener base so far, which is awesome, but it's not huge or anything, but it's like, yeah, I'm just proud to have those things.
Awesome, man. And you should be.
Yeah, well, it's cool having logos and people drawing you and someone singing for you, and like it's almost an arts version of I was gonna say royalty, like people waiting on you and delivering you. I know that's stupid, but
no, it's man. I think if you've got a product that you're really proud of, regardless of how big the audience is, that doesn't really matter. You're doing it for yourself.
The only thing is this whole like, because it's always just you like as a solo single act or performer, whatever you want to call it. Like I'm dealing with it now, but the other year it became pretty intense. I had some mental health demons and issues, and a lot of it could stem back to it's pretty intense. Just always being like, you're selling yourself basically, where it's like me, and then it's like, and then I'm like rock up to a gig, and it's like set up my merch store, and there's all these shirts that say my name on it. And it's like it's pretty intense. Like,
man, I think look, everyone has, well, not everyone, a lot of people have mental health situations and issues and stuff, and when you are a one man show, it must be hard and daunting for that sort of stuff, you know?
Yeah. That's why I'm kind of jealous of bands. They can spread out. Like, and if a gig sucks, like blame each other. But the opposite too, like if it's almost like team sports, right? Where it's like a good night, you like share it together.
Yep.
And I've just got to keep the highs and the lows kind of neutral. Like that was the thing I learned. And talking before about auditions and things, I had to learn because my emotions were going too high and low, and because sometimes you'd like get asked to audition for something, and one of the worst things you can do is like see the pay amount and start thinking you've got it, and you start spending it in your head or whatever, or even just thinking you're over the line. And a brutal part of life is sometimes things don't happen until they're definitely happening, you know?
Yeah. And look, being in that industry that you're in, rejection is 90% of it, really, isn't it?
Yeah, man. Like, I've heard so many things. I've had so many things fizzle out where it's like, people are like, you could be doing this, or things pitched to me, or, and like COVID was brutal, you know? Like, I'm sure that's a recurring theme, but, you know, like losing gigs and having to change your lifestyle, and because you've built your fan base pretty quickly, but then it was also natural and organic because people liked what you were doing. Have you had people reach out to you and sort of promise you the world, like, hey, you should come do this and we can do this, and trying to fucking sort of squeeze the juice out of your stuff? Yeah, it's funny you say that. That little period I was talking about where it was like, felt like I was, you know, things are blowing up and doing well, and there was sort of like some cowboys coming out of the closet of like these dudes, like, because one of the big things is like a lot of people as performers, you do want to get representation and management and stuff, but these guys coming out, and you look them up and they'd never done anything, they're like, oh, they're just going to start, you know, I want to be your manager. And
they're
like,
trying to eat off your plate though.
Yeah. And it was like, and I was a bit intimidated because you know, suffer with some sort of things. I don't know what you'd call it, you know, sort of like on the autistic spectrum sort of thing, if you can't tell. But so like I brought my dad along, but even there, because he's like, you know, another voice to hear or whatever.
Yep.
But even they're not from that world of entertainment, so they don't know what they're being told. Just, I guess, to watch over that I'm not going to be ripped off or scammed. And
it's a hard thing to navigate for anybody.
Yeah. Because all these people are like, man, we want to do this for you, we want to do this. And it's intimidating to go from nothing to like...
But what they really want is they want you to make them money. That's all they want. And I think that, I'm not going to judge because I don't know these people in particular, but I think once somebody has a little taste of fame, a lot of people come out and they try and capitalize off you as much as they can.
Yeah, definitely. Because it's like you've already kind of halfway done a lot of the work.
Work
That
for.
if they've got an act that they need to get out, they've got to spend all this time ringing radio station. And like I said, it's all flipped now. No one really knows the exact way to do anything.
Do it, yeah. Well, because
It's not like the old day we go, get that song on Triple J, get that
Yep.
clip on Rage, whatever.
Yep.
Like, yeah.
You mentioned the autism spectrum thing.
Yeah.
Like, obviously now that's a pretty prominent thing and everybody kind of talks about it. But I guess from people of our age, it wasn't really spoken about
Yeah.
that much at school. Was it diagnosed for you, or you just sort of as you've got later in life, you've sort of become to understand it more?
No, I was diagnosed quite young at primary school. I think they don't even use that word now, Asperger's, but because the guy was a Nazi or something. But but I was like, my younger years, I was in denial. I was, being a bit rebellious. I was like, oh, you can't put a label on me, blah blah blah. But I could tell there was like, because I was pretty naughty, so in class they'd have like a special teacher had to watch over me and whatever, all this shit going on, but I was still in denial.
Yep.
But then I get to my adult years where, it's hard to talk about, but it's like in school, I was going to say, I don't know if it's the right word, like sheltered, I guess, but in the real world, your actions have big repercussions. So it's like, your school years, if you stuff up or whatever, the repercussions, you're like, whatever. I'm doing stupid shit. Maybe it's like suspended at school or little bits of trouble, right? Then you enter the real world and it's like, I get like all these things have more larger repercussions, right?
Definitely.
And I had to face up to like, oh, I've got something, like,
Yeah.
I'm a weird dude, right? And I'm like, I struggle to find the word for things sometimes because I was going to say embrace. Like, embrace is not really the right word.
Or harness it.
Yeah, but I was going to say, instead of denying it, was like, yes, that's me. And I had to, but all these things like being incredibly socially awkward, and which is painful because it's like, I'd be at parties and stuff and everyone's enjoying themselves and my brain's freaking out, just like, I can't do this. And like, then I'd just like get home and be like, whoa, like,
yeah.
Where it's like, I wanted to be enjoying it, and that sort of thing, yeah.
But so then I think most people think being on stage with a microphone and no music and just you and the audience is probably one of the most daunting things to do, but that you felt comfortable doing that?
Yeah, well, I get that a lot actually because people go like, if I say I'm shy, they go, shy? Like, why do you do... But sometimes not everything matches. Like, I like being a funny dude, and I do like making people laugh and happy and smile. And it just happens you've got to present that. And I know, like, the other thing is funny, because being on the socials, Facey, Insta, whatever, people would not equate that to shy. Yeah. But it's just the nature of the... I don't love being like, look at this, look at this, look at this, Like, when I talked about starting that, you remember that Feed Me Anything thing? I was petrified because I had to like make an order, and like I said, I'm so bad at tech now. I realize you can do selfies and stuff. I didn't even know that. I'd order the thing and then I'd go, excuse me, can you do a photo? And that was like, and something inside of me actually kind of, this sounds a bit cheesy, a bit silly, but I'm almost like, because I overcame that, because I was petrified, that could be why I did well. It's like karma or something, right? I don't know.
Yeah.
Because
Something
inside of me is going like, what the fuck? Like, something inside of me is going, don't ask. Like, and then I overpowered that and said, can you take a pic of me? And it's embarrassing. It's like, can you take a pic of me having a meal? And that was still the early days. Like, not many people are following, but sometimes if you believe in karma and stuff.
But you've got to put it out there for it to be any, you've got to be comfortable in yourself and you've got to harness these.
But if you, like, what I'm trying to say is if you believe in, like, life shouldn't be easy, right? Like, and there should be something to overcome for something to be successful. If you believe
for sure.
In that, right?
If it comes too easy, then is it actually worth? Yeah, is it worth anything?
Yeah.
I really enjoy how you look. Obviously, there's some people making money out of comedy, but there's not a million people making money out of comedy.
Yeah.
It's hard, and a lot of comedians have to still do their real-time gigs, but you showcase that on your socials, which I think is a breath of fresh air as well. You'll be like, I'm doing an Airtasker gig or whatever, which is cool because a lot of people wouldn't put that out there. They only put their professionalism side out there, but you roll with it.
It's funny you say that because years ago, like when I was doing the taxi driving, and it wasn't, like I said, sometimes in life you don't think of like how I'm being looked at or whatever. You just do it because you've got to. And I just had to, I had night shift jobs, but I wanted to do comedy gigs. But I'd like roll up in front of the gig, like put my taxi there, go in, do my spot, and I'm like in uniform, and then go back to work. And I was a bit of a like, I was going to say a bit of a joke in the scene, but not even in a mean way. People just knew me as the guy who rocks up halfway through his taxi shift and would do his spot, then go back.
Yeah.
But it was, people were like, this is weird and laughing. And I was just like, I've got to do it. I need the money.
Yeah.
I mean,
did you think about creating a taxi driver character and really leaning into that?
Yeah, like, I got a few stories out of it, but it was also a pretty depressing job. It's not a very nice job. So I was kind of like trying to just block it and push it out. And it wasn't a good part of my life. Like, the money sucks, and then you think you're going to get a lot of good yarns, but it's just a lot of shit you don't want to hear. Like, look, I like to think I'm a person who's not racist or multi. I know anything that starts with I'm not racist. No, but so I'm against racism no matter what. But especially like I ended up being, you know, when people are like, oh, like racist, like speak English, so that sort of. I ended up being, I prefer other language being spoken because you can zone out easier.
Yeah,
it's harder to like. I don't know, everyone's different, but when English has been spoken, you just automatically pick it up.
Yeah.
And I have to hear like misogynistic crap. Just like, you know, because I have night shifts, so there's pick up the bros going out to the nightclub.
Yeah,
like, don't do
pissed
this
shit.
to a whatever. I'm not going to repeat it, but you know, just gross stuff. And it was almost like, yes, someone hops in, Japanese businessman, whatever. I'm not going to understand what they're saying. It's either if someone kept quiet the whole way, awesome. Or, which is a shame to be. Like, sometimes you'd have some nice chats with people, but there's just a lot of gross stuff.
Around about,
And people wanted to talk too about, I'm white cabbie, and it's just like, get over it. But it's like, well, the first person doesn't realise it, the 100th person doesn't realise they're the 100th person to just bring it up.
Told you that.
And I'm like, man, I just wanted to do this job. Like, I can't control it. 70% or whatever.
Yeah.
Like,
You get the whole, busy night, mate?
Yeah. Oh, that one too, yeah.
So aside from the Airtasker gigs and all that other sort of stuff, you are a sports nuffie, and you say that yourself. You embrace the nuffiness?
Oh, definitely. Like, we've got group chats with other comedians, and I know people are sick of me because I'm the one talking most of the time. Like, check out this link, check out... And I'm a nuffie for stats, like a big stat nerd. Just news that's happening. But having said that, I do want to put an asterisk on it because I will be a nuffie or a punisher in some areas, and then others I'll be like, everyone's talking about the draft, and I'm like, who cares, man? They're kids. Like, we don't know. But then I shouldn't be so... Because I'm a nuffie in these other areas, right?
Yeah. The draft is... Man, like, I watch it because I love my footy. It's so... When you break it down to what it is, it's fucking weird. You've got a whole... You've got, like, 15 dudes from one team sitting around picking which 18-year-old kid is going to have to leave their house tomorrow and fly somewhere else.
Well, I find it funny, too, because I like a lot of the American sports. But they've got college sports over there, right? And... You can actually have watched these guys for 3 or 4 years. Yeah. What happens here is the media picks kids, tells everyone, and people just buy it.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure they are very talented, but the media will just go, Harley Reid, guaranteed to be brilliant. Yeah. And it's like, why? Dominated versus kids in Bendigo.
Yeah.
And I'm sure he's a gun, like fast, quick, strong, whatever. But... The media picks him, and people just buy it.
I think the way that
I know it sounds very conspiracy theorist, but I'm like...
I think the way with the footy draft and how that changed is what it became less about the skills and more about the athletics, and then we'll teach them how to sort of play footy later. Yeah. They're like, this kid's got the biggest vertical, this kid's got the biggest sprint, the fastest sprint, and then we can teach them, we can put size on them, you know?
Well, and And footy, Australian football is such a unique game. Like, it's this giant field, right? And because some of these sports, basketball, right, you get these dudes where it's just like, like LeBron, he's a physical specimen. And the court's what, I don't know, 15, 20 meters. So you can get the ball and just go. You can't in footy, right? Because it's what, 15 meters, you got to bounce it. All the 200, you think of like who is in the history of like who is the most freakish guys, right? Like a Carey or a Franklin, and they're brilliant, but they still people will tell you they took over games, but it's not true because it's not like they had great games. They would. I don't know. I just don't buy it. I don't buy that. For me, footy is it's an effort game, right? Like wanting to get to that contest. And when people talk about like this guy's a physical specimen, it's like you just can't. You can't take over.
And the game keeps changing with the way that it's being coached and the rules keep fucking unfortunately changing. So the game does change. And I think that some people may not be amazing. Well, they'd still be good players, but...
Well, talking about me moving to Victoria, right? So I'd become a footy fan. But I'd never played in Queensland, so I moved down here and I was really excited about playing. But growing up with rugby league, I found this too much running for me in footy, right?
Yeah.
So I wasn't having fun because I'm touching the ball like once or twice.
Yeah.
Because you got to... See, in rugby league, right, I was... Positions called prop or front row, which is basically the fat guys. They just run. They just run and it's not a very smart position, whatever. But anyway... So if I want to run, I want the ball. You ask for it and you get it. They pass it. Whereas footy, right? You either got to get in there or you got to you got to get your own ball all the
Different
time.
game.
Yeah. Oh man, like so much running. I played first in Melbourne. I played for Fitzroy Stars, the Indigenous club. Actually, I'm not Indigenous, but someone asked me to come down. I felt like, oh, that's like really nice,
Yeah.
I had this sort of like gag about that. I don't know. I warn you, it's not good, but it's not crook or anything. But I was like, when you see someone like an Eminem or whatever, and they're like, the hip hop culture embrace them. He's like, oh, a white fella who can rap, he's one of us. I said, for them, maybe it was like a white fella who's funny. Welcome in, That was my kind of. I didn't say it was a good gag. I warned you.
You did warn us.
No, but it felt funny because I'm not Indigenous. I don't have any Indigenous roots or anything. But I was honoured to be at the club. It was cool.
And you played there for a while.
Yeah, it was the Rezzies team. I think I played 4 or 5 games.
Yeah.
When I say played, like I said, 1 or 2 touches. But,
yeah.
Yeah, but then moved to Ballarat. Played Rezzies there for a club called Redan, which they had one of those beautiful. When all the gold mining money, they had a beautiful grandstand because of that, like 1800s when the gold mining money. And
you were nerding out a bit about that, the grandstand. And
I loved it. The funny thing about that is, so I found out I was going to play for the club, and they have this beautiful grandstand. I'm like, I can't wait to play. And then, just from, I was going to say luck or unluckiness, always when I'd be on tour would be when the home game was on.
Oh, yeah.
And so I end up mainly playing away games. I never got to play with the beautiful grandstand. And the other thing that was funny too is a weird geographical league, the Ballarat League.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if you know anything about it, but they've got Melton, which is really closer to like Western Melbourne.
Yep.
Sunbury as well, which is like closer to the Melbourne airport.
Which is the birthplace of the Ashes.
Oh, really? Yeah, I've heard of that, yeah. So it's a very weird geographical comp. So I was doing like road trips for the away games and
But you used to be on the road, man.
But it's actually surprised me. It was a decent comp, the Rezzies in Ballarat. I thought country town Rezzies is going to be a lot of fat guys, old guys. But apparently the way it happens is so they've got these sort of, when you go to like a larger country town like Ballarat, they have these comps on the outskirts, and that's where the I was trying to put it nicer. I was going to say the crapper players,
but there is
not as great players play like I forgot the names. There's like these out of towns like I can't remember it.
But there is the Super League, the over 35s league as well, though, man.
Yeah, that's what I need. Well, that's what I was playing in rugby league this year. I played over 35s. Yeah.
In Melbourne?
Brisbane, sorry.
Brisbane, yeah.
I've only just come back to Melbourne now, yeah. So.
And this is your third crack at it?
Yeah.
Are you digging it?
Yeah, I'm in Sunshine West now, so so I went Fitzroy first to Preston Reservoir. I say both because I was like on the border, but and now I'm in the Wild West.
Yeah. Are you digging it there? You like it there?
Yeah. It's now that I got my car back, it's good. I didn't have my car for a couple of weeks, and I'm in a bad spot for public transport. So I was like, a lot of walking to trains and changing trains, and it just wore me down. I was very tired.
Yeah, that's the thing. If you're going to be out west, you're going to be next to the station. Otherwise, it's going to be a drainer, man.
Yeah. Well, my locals, I've got a station that's 15 minutes walk, but it's a V line station. So, like the country one.
Yeah.
And then, so I had to like change. Anyway, I'm boring. It's boring, boring train talk. See, I'll nerd out with geography and think that's cool. It's all like whatever you're into, right? Some people find train talk interesting.
Do you know how many train stations there are in metropolitan Melbourne?
Oh, no. I've seen the map. There's a lot, yeah.
222 last time
Wow,
I had a look.
that's a lot.
That's a lot.
What about trams?
I've done that. I run a trivia night or a trivia group, and so I've got a lot of these questions that I've had, and I think there's 350 something tram stops, but there's always more because I keep adding them.
That's another thing about moving to Melbourne. The whole tram stuff is like, I found myself when I'm driving like slipping on the rail lines and stuff.
You gotta watch out, man. The hook turns. How do you go with the hook turns?
Oh, those freak me out. They're crazy. Pretty sure I don't do them right.
Yeah, you gotta be careful. You get hit by a fucking tram.
Well, I didn't realize. So you gotta wait till like it goes red. Right?
Yeah.
I was just going into them and turning, and people
Dude,
like beeping
that's how
me.
That's how you'll get T-boned by a fucking tram.
Yeah, I know, man. Oh, it freaks me out. Yeah.
My partner, she's lived in Melbourne her whole life, and I don't think she's ever done a hook turn. She just refuses to go drive through the city.
Yeah. Oh man, I don't like it.
So you love your food, and you've managed to make a lot of content out of that. If you had to eat one thing for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Whoa, this is like choosing a favorite child. I do like my Asian food. Laksa, have you ever had laksa?
Yeah.
I love laksa.
It's more of a soup than a salt. Like it's a great meal.
Yeah.
I do like laksa. What kind of laksa do you get into?
Usually like chicken.
Yeah.
I've had roast duck is nice. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That's as experimental as I go with me. I'm like, I'll give duck a try, but
You don't do seafood?
Oh, not a huge seafood, but I'll have like prawns or But obviously love like I like fish and chips and stuff. I reckon my secret to like for me having seafood is like heavily crumbed or battered.
Yeah. You love the deep fried stuff.
Yeah. It's kind of cheating, isn't it?
Yeah. Have you like? I don't want to bring up a cliche, but you still call them scallops?
Potato scallops. Yeah, that's probably the thing that's going to get me kicked out of it. But this is what I don't. See, I don't get caught up too much in these, like, when people get really worked up about it. But I do believe, especially with palmy, I'm just like, whatever, eat it.
It's the same. Yeah, it's good.
But this is my thing, right, for potato. So potato cakes, I'm like, cake's sweet, man. Cake's got to be sweet, yeah.
It is. It's just so normal for us. We just...
That was weird how Macca's did them for a bit, eh? That was weird.
Yeah, Macca's, and Macca's are doing the McRib. They're trying to do
Yeah, I just had the other day. It was all right, yeah.
Was it?
Yeah, it was pretty nice.
It
wasn't great. I'm not a huge Macca's person. That'll probably create some controversy.
But I think back to an old fucking Rodney Rude gag, and he goes, "A rib is a fucking bone. Like, how do you give us a rib that doesn't have a bone?"
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's not a real rib, I don't think.
No, it's just, what is it? A piece of deep fried?
I thought about that the other day, because like that was the thing. It was quite meaty, and I'm like, anytime I've had ribs before, it's a lot of getting the littlest bit of meat.
Yeah.
I'm too lazy to like. That's the thing. I like prawns, right? But there's the big. You got to scooping out the guts.
Yeah. Wings, it's like a lot of work for little reward, but it is good meat. You know?
Crabs, a lot of work for not much meat. Yeah.
That's why you just want a big palmer that they just slap it down there, and you don't have to fucking deal with it.
That's the best, eh?
Yeah. Does it spin you out how like chicken salt is just an Australian thing? I've seen you do your chicken salt thing, man, but
Yeah, I got to go to the factory. Did you see that?
Was
for,
that
Vice,
were you were nerding out hard?
Oh man, I was surprised that because it's not it's like a family sort of company, not a huge place. I was surprised they allowed us to go, but yeah, that was a very interesting experience. It was like, classic thing that we've all put on meals over the years, right? Yeah, I'll have to do Barbie sauce next or something. Yeah,
But yeah, it's a spin out that it's only an Australian thing. You go overseas and you try and ask for anything like that, they just shake their head. You go to the UK, you're like, "Can I get some chicken salt?" They're like, "What the fuck is that?"
What are you talking about? Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah.
And so you're doing a few appearance type things as well. You're doing some bucks parties and that sort of thing. How's that been going?
Man, it's funny. The first time I ever got asked years ago, like just appear at parties, it didn't felt too easy. It's like, but then it's like, it's that thing like I was talking before about. It's almost you need something to like, I've earned this and the thing that I started to find was because there's like always lots of people there who are lovely, and then there's a few punishers, and that's what makes you earn it. Because there'll be someone who just hangs around like a bad smell, going like, and they're obsessed too. That's like, you're getting paid just to hang out, and I'm like, these people are really bugging me. It's like, because I did some work ones recently, and I just feel like, oh man, your boss wanted this, he's paying for it. Get over it. Like, because I went, there was a couple there was one in Brizzy where I went out on a boat with this. It was like their end of year thing, and it was like, but like sometimes they want you to do a spot, which is great. I like to perform, but it's also not easy. Like sometimes it's just like standing on the floor. Sometimes no mic. Yeah, and so like that's when I'm like, I'm earning this, right?
Totally.
But even when you're just hanging out, I still don't feel guilty because I'm like,
Well, yeah.
I've not forced anyone to do this, but people are stoked. That's what I said. Most of the people are stoked. There's only a couple of punishers who are like, usually want to bug me. Yeah. They're like either jealous or
they just had too many fucking beers and they just don't.
Because some people they are stoked to see you just hanging out in your own sort of thing.
Your own thing.
Because then there's guys but there will be guys who are like, they're really obsessed with like getting the value for money. Like, are you going to perform? I'm like, yeah.
You're going to juggle?
Yeah. But it's like, yeah, like that one went out on the boat. It was like this crazy, like super yacht. It's like unlimited food and drinks. Like, I can do this live. But
fucking nice.
Then you get the taste of it. It's like, yeah. And I do a few Chrissy stuff.
Gocsy Santa.
I get people saying like, will you come and do my wedding for me? And yeah, you get these offers, but they're quite sporadic. There's not enough to like live off it.
Live off that.
Yeah.
With like your stand-up stuff, how do you go with dealing with hecklers and that sort of thing? Like you just said, people annoy you, but in that scenario, you can be like, piss off, man. I'm here doing this. How do you deal with the hecklers and that sort of thing when you're fucking on stage and you've got people that are trying to be fuckheads?
Yeah, well, I'm not a very confrontational person. I don't like sort of drama, so I'll try and get out of it. So I've been pretty lucky, but...
The gig down here in Mornington, you copped it.
Yeah. Yeah, they were pretty rough.
Yeah.
It's more... It's that thing of like, you add in booze or drugs. I think those dudes are on something. But, and then you add in numbers. Like if they're in a group of 5, 6, 7, they get that confidence.
Mob mentality.
Mob mentality, that's a good way of putting it. So they're the hard ones. But generally, it's good if the rest of the crowd are on your side. So if you can go off with them, then everyone agrees like they deserve that. But I'm pretty lucky, I haven't had a lot of it. I haven't had heaps of it. Like I said about those ones like the uni, like they're almost more brutal when silence.
Crickets.
It's almost like give me the heckling any day. Yeah, it's just that nothing like.
At least you can work with the heckling. You can bounce back. But if it's just silence, if it's crickets, there's not much to do.
Because depending on the person you are, I don't like forcing things on people. Mm-hmm. But I know if you've been paid and very professional to just do your job. But I feel like if you're not into this, I don't like forcing it on you. So that's why like 30 minutes of silence is tough. Because part of my brain's like, you've been booked, you're getting paid, just do it. And the other part is like, no one wants this. Like, don't force them.
I can feel for you. That would be an awkward spot.
That's the highs and lows. Like, comedy can be a beautiful thing. I love hearing laughter. But the flip side is time goes very slow if they're not into it. Yeah, like that. I just wanted the stage to open up and like a pit, and just swallow me.
Oh man, what advice would you give to young people that want to get into comedy? What would you tell them? What if you could go back and talk to 18-year-old Gocsy now? What would you fucking tell them?
I'd say back off. This town's for me. No, I'm joking. I've had people I've tried to take under my wing, and then they get more successful, and I'm like, fuck you. No, I'm joking. But if I like someone, get along with them, I'm happy to give advice and try and guide them. But I guess in terms of like, because I spent years of like working out mistakes, and so I guess like I said, if you're someone like me who's like, why aren't things taking off and whinging, you've actually got to be proactive. You can't just expect someone to knock on your door. So that would be the biggest advice is like, don't expect things to happen. You've got to make it happen. Another pretty common one is, and this is just overall any industry, not just comedy, but like make your act something you would want to see yourself. I know it's a bit lame to think, oh, would I buy a ticket to this? But if you're just phoning it in and treating it like I've done a lot of like labouring jobs that I just phone in, right? But I'm like, I never treat comedy like that because I love it.
Yeah, and
it's the same thing. So if you're treating it like you're phoning it in, that's what you're going to get back, right?
Yeah.
So don't expect to get good results if you're not putting that in. Yeah. So yeah, that's the main thing I guess is try to have a show or performance you'd be proud of. Something you'd like to watch yourself.
That's the same sort of mentality I take to this show that I'm doing. Is I'm like, this is content that I want to watch and listen to. So I feel like hopefully there's an audience out there.
Yeah, that's a good way.
And that's the way to start, you know.
And another thing I guess too is it's good. It's fine to be a fan. It's fine to be influenced by your favorite acts, but don't let it take over. Like I spent the first year or whatever just being like a rip-off of my favourite acts. It takes time, but... Yeah, so those are the main things. Try and be an act you're proud of. Try not to just be a copy of your favourite act.
And just don't be afraid to put yourself out there and just give it a fucking crack.
Make the effort and keep practising and but just... If you get big, make sure to include me and...
To shout out Gocsy.
Yeah.
Man... Well, let people know what to expect. Is there anything that they can watch out for in 2024? This year is coming to an end. You're doing Gocsy Santa. What's happening next year, man?
So I'm looking to do the Comedy Fest. There's quite a lot around. I'm pretty sure I've got Melbourne booked in. I'm going to be at a venue called the Catfish in Fitzroy.
Yep.
So I'm excited about that. The show that I'm doing is going to be... and just after I've said don't be a rip-off of things, I'm doing basically a rip-off of like Letterman, Conan O'Brien, but it's Gocsy tonight, right? So I'm at the desk talking to people. So, and when I say rip-off, it's going to be my own style, but it's more honouring those late-night TV shows, right? Yep. But yeah, Melbourne Comedy Fest, hoping to do others. So that's a big priority. I love the acting stuff, so hopefully more acting. But also, getting out on the road. If you've got a venue or know anyone with a pub near you, get in touch if you think I'm suitable or try and get them. Yeah, I'm always looking for places to perform at.
Awesome.
So, just trying to be busy, live, hopefully get into some sports stuff, the Comedy Fest, and would love to do more acting, So.
Yeah. Awesome, man. Do you want to give anybody...
Emu War is going to be coming out. Yeah,
I've seen the trailer. But
yeah. Well, we got to see... I went to 2 screenings of it. It was very limited. I went to a Melbourne one and a Sydney one. But I think May it's going to be in cinemas again. It's very slow. Then I think they're hoping to try and do some sort of streaming. But I'm not involved in that process. That's some smarter people than me. But it was a very fun thing. I got to shoot emus and fight them and stuff.
Not in real life.
No. This is not in real life.
We don't want the RSPCA shutting it.
Yeah, no actual animals were hurt.
Do you want to give a shout out to anybody before we wrap it up, man?
Not really. Go the Saints, I guess. Yeah. Who's your team?
I go for the Pies, man.
Oh, you're still Did you have a big party after that?
I had,
GF?
yeah, I had my partner's 40th the day before the grand final, so
Wow,
it was a
big
big,
weekend.
big weekend, and yeah,
Yeah. Well, you know, it was interesting, like, because you see both in sports, like, where you like fully deserved it, right? All throughout the year, you were great. But you see the other one where you see teams just get hot, and so, but part of that being good for a long time, it's almost like hurry, you know, like waiting for that day.
Yeah.
And was it a big relief too, of like, yeah.
Yeah, it was. I'm lucky enough to have seen Collingwood win 3 times now. 90, 2010. It seems to happen, 2010 and then 2023. So, yeah, I've seen some success. A lot of other people haven't been as successful with their teams. I feel for them.
I don't. I'm trying to be positive, like that I'll see one Saints win in my life, but you never know.
Think about this. The Tigers were shit house for
Yeah,
ever, and
yeah.
then they had one of the best runs in modern day footy.
You just need heaps of things to go right.
You need things to
You
go.
need heaps of good players, good coaches, everyone on the same page. But yeah, hey, we drew with you guys. Like that was very close.
that was, and I think that should be extra time, man. Like I
Yeah,
almost
yeah.
feel like that's got a fucking asterisk on it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they shouldn't. They're
Well,
not going to do.
It got changed after that. Yeah.
And so it should, I think, man. Like
yeah.
making people come back
Weird-
the next week.
It's a weird tradition. Yeah.
Yeah.
They do have a lot of weird traditions. But anyway, I feel like we just leave the footy talk for another episode. But no, but thanks so much for having me on. I appreciate it. And yeah, just like, I guess in general, keep an eye on things I'm doing. But I appreciate people listening and yeah.
So you can check out the Have a Yarn with me on Spotify.
Yeah.
You can go to Gocsy's fucking. What's your Instagram?
I just use my name for everything. I'm not very creative. Aaron Gocs, AaronGocs. Yeah, Insta, Facey. I was kicked off of Twitter.
Well, yeah. Elon hasn't let you back on.
But not even. It's a long story, but it's not even anything interesting or good. It's just,
Oh man.
yeah.
All right. Well, Aaron Gocs, you can check him out. Thanks for coming,
Thanks a lot.
Gocsy.
Thanks for having me.
Cheers.
$1,000.